what Becky Hammon said about the limited time for Chennedy Carter. You see the article here. It's titled, Chennedy Carter waived by Aces before WNBA's guaranteed contract deadline. And it says the Las Vegas Aces waived guard Chennedy Carter and signed for...
Here is how everything unfolded. Chennedy Carter was just released by the Las Vegas Aces, the exact franchise that offered her a fresh start under 3 months back. Yet, everyone seems to be missing the most critical detail of this situation. We will dive into that shortly.
Has decided not to match an offer from the Las Vegas Aces for developmental player Justine Pissott. You know how the developmental player contracts go. I talked about it again yesterday when I talked about Kate Martin being upgraded, if you will, from a developmental contract with the LA Sparks, to a standard contract. Well, Pissott was on a developmental contract, and she has now signed with the Las Vegas Aces.
Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever recently finalized a pair of roster moves that have completely split the WNBA fanbase. They permitted developmental player Justine Pissott to join the Las Vegas Aces, prompting a reaction as if they had parted ways with a future Diana Taurasi. To clear a spot for her, the Aces immediately parted ways with Chennedy Carter, who was projected to provide instant energy as a reserve. When you analyze these decisions closely, both transactions reveal exactly what organizations prioritize behind closed doors when the cameras stop rolling.
Would have likely meant waiving rookie forward Grace Van Sluten or veteran center Damiris Dantas, the two players that get the least minutes on the Fever roster. What White said on keeping them. First and foremost, they're great culture players, great culture teammates. They're going to be ready when their number is called. White said of keeping Van Sluten and Dantas over giving Pissott a roster spot. Grace is a young player who I think can really develop into a solid 4 in this league. Dee is a veteran who understands how to stay ready so she doesn't have to get ready, who we can play in certain lineups and certain matchups, who are going to give us great minutes in practice as well, and who are going to help continue to elevate and build and pour into our...
Head coach Stephanie White was direct about the situation. She emphasized that retaining Grace Van Sluten and Damiris Dantas came down to team culture, a term she repeated frequently, and keeping individuals who fully invest in the group. In coaching terms, that means something very precise. The players wanted Dantas around. Recall that ahead of the season opener, Indiana's key players actively asked for Dantas to be brought back. Therefore, when White mentions culture, she isn't being ambiguous. She is signaling that the veteran players expressed their desires and the front office obliged. Furthermore, there is another angle to consider.
Like you, I'm not at the Fever practices. So I don't have a clue about Justine Pissott's development or lack thereof. And remember, this is not college, but in college, in Vanderbilt, this ain't college, okay? And actually someone shared what her stats were even in college. And it's not worth having a conniption for her being released. So yeah, but I'm not going to pretend I know. I know there are people out there who are like, I don't know why, but they're just totally like, oh my goodness, don't you know Pissott is the answer to everything? No, I don't know that. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm...
This is precisely why the social media backlash loses its footing. The public does not attend Fever practices, nor do we witness Pissott's daily progress. We lack insight into what the coaches observe during tape reviews and team scrimmages. The reality we do know is straightforward. Pissott held a developmental contract for a specific reason, having missed out on a standard roster position following training camp. Looking back at her collegiate statistics at Vanderbilt, her production does not suggest an undeniable star. Recording 6.4 points per contest during her final year is respectable, but letting go of a developmental player with those metrics is hardly a disaster.
So I'm not going to pretend I know that her game is worth keeping. Another point is that, let's be honest, Pissott probably wouldn't get to play much in Indiana. I mean, there's a reason why she didn't make the standard roster. she's probably not going to play much. So if she's not going to play much, brings me to my next point. If she can possibly get minutes in Las Vegas, and that remains to be seen, but if she can, integrity to me says better to release her.
Why then is there so much panic? A major factor is the schedule. The Fever are currently traveling out west, meaning Pissott will be suited up for the Aces the very next time these two franchises face each other, which creates a strange visual. Beyond that, fans are projecting her future potential rather than evaluating her actual production in brief appearances. She predominantly took the court during the closing moments of decided games. With a lineup featuring Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, and Alyssa Smith, finding available playing time for Pissott is an incredibly difficult task.
But if she can, integrity to me says better to release her than hold her back. If I can look at our roster and say she's not likely going to get that opportunity, then I'm going to let her go. Because of course, Indiana had the opportunity to match Vegas's offer. They had 24 hours. So by 5 p.m. Eastern time, they would have had to match that. They chose not to do that. They would have had to match it, meaning she would be on a standard contract. And you know what? Probably wouldn't have been able to get to play much. So I'm like, let her go. Like, we've been working with her. She's been developing. Let her go, spread her wings.
The Fever were given a 24-hour window to match the offer from Las Vegas, a move that required upgrading her to a standard deal with guaranteed salary and a dedicated roster slot. Given that management clearly did not envision her receiving playing time, parting ways was the logical choice. During the preseason, Pissott noted that her primary objective was securing a traditional contract. If Indiana was unable to provide that path while Las Vegas could, keeping her would have been unfair. This choice reflects organizational integrity rather than hostility, offering her a genuine path to get on the court and grow elsewhere, matching her stated desires.
Earlier, how much she's going to get to play, I don't know, because it is Las Vegas after all. So here's the next thing, which really goes without saying. I'm rocking with the Indiana Fever. So whoever's in a Fever jersey, I'm rooting for you, right? I also wish her well. I wish Justine Pissott absolutely well, and I would have wished her well if she stayed with the Fever. Obviously, that's not happening. I wish her well as she goes, but it's not certainly the end of.
It simply is not the end of the world. Now, whether she will earn minutes in Las Vegas remains to be seen, particularly since the Aces cut Chennedy Carter to create this opening. Carter's ability to score at the WNBA level is undisputed. She can undeniably produce points. Her past stints overseas did not happen because she lost her talent, but rather because ongoing locker room friction kept her out of the league. The reality that Las Vegas cut ties with her so rapidly speaks volumes about the internal dynamics of the team.
Where she was out, she disappeared, and they cited sickness back in Chicago 2 seasons ago. Again, I pray that she's well. She has come back, but she hasn't played a whole lot of minutes. And it was interesting to me because when Indiana played the Aces on Sunday, it was almost like Chennedy was half trying. And I heard, I heard people saying that she just doesn't look like she's well yet. Well,
Head coach Becky Hammon offered no excuses when Carter logged a mere 11 minutes against Chicago on Friday, despite being completely healthy. Hammon stated that Chennedy was fine physically but explained it as a coaching preference based on what was functioning well on the floor. She noted she was displeased with the performance and chose to keep her on the bench, leading to her complete release under a week later. A move like that goes beyond simple on-court strategy. It is a cultural statement. The idea of bringing Carter to Indiana makes little sense in this context.
No, because again, that culture that obviously the team and the players are invested in, it matters. And I said, I personally wouldn't have taken a chance on Chennedy Carter first. I wished her well, and I said somebody would, and I'd have to observe that. Now, I did a video on my second channel about how that all came down.
Previously, Carter sat out 5 games due to what management labeled an illness. Observers of her professional journey will recognize this ongoing trend. 2 seasons back in Chicago, she vanished from the lineup midway through the year under a similar medical explanation. If these health issues are genuine, she deserves support and recovery. However, a visible cycle remains. An individual with immense talent secures a roster spot, experiences internal friction, and ultimately departs. This sequence occurred in Atlanta, repeated itself in Chicago, and has now unfolded in Las Vegas, despite Chicago's coach and former league player Teresa Weatherspoon personally endorsing her to Becky Hammon.
Had a conversation with Becky Hammon. Becky Hammon decided to give her a chance. Chennedy Carter is a bucket. We already know she can play. We already know she wasn't playing overseas because she can't ball. But culture matters, and if you have constant issues in locker rooms, then the teams you're on will have constant issues as well. And so I don't know what happened. I do know several weeks ago, I did a video because Chennedy went on social media and she was basically saying that she was on a leash and all these things. I don't know if that figures in. She sat out 5 games. Sickness is what they say.
This reality is what observers must grasp. When leadership describes a player as a cultural fit, it is not an empty concept. It directly addresses whether an individual elevates or hinders daily practices, and whether they inspire or exhaust their peers. It evaluates if a player can accept a reserve role without disrupting team harmony. A few weeks ago, Chennedy Carter expressed frustration online about feeling restricted and kept on a tight leash. While her feelings may have been genuine, a player joining a title-contending franchise after missing a full season cannot set the conditions. Respect must be earned on the floor before making demands.
Team announced Tuesday, and you can see it right here. The Aces posted, "Thank you, Chennedy." You know that thank you. You know what that means. So the WNBA teams had until 5 p.m. Eastern to waive players on non-guaranteed contracts before their deals became fully guaranteed. Now, Carter only appeared in 11 minutes during Las Vegas's 98-90 win over the Sky on Friday, although Aces head coach Becky Hammon did not reference an injury or sickness either when discussing her limited playtime. Hammon said Chennedy should be good to go. Just made an executive decision there on what I liked and what was working. So obviously they made another executive decision, and that is to let her.
Moving forward, Carter will remain on the waiver wire for 48 hours, allowing any franchise to claim her and assume her current deal. Should several organizations express interest, the franchise with the lowest winning percentage receives top priority. If she goes unclaimed, she enters unrestricted free agency, leaving her free to sign with any team. Realistically speaking, there is no massive line of suitors. She has now been released or let go by several organizations. Even the Aces, who actively require offensive production from their reserves, determined that a raw developmental player was preferable to retaining Chennedy Carter. That choice indicates exactly where her reputation stands across the league today.
Is there an issue behind the scenes? We don't know, but unfortunately, she's out again. Now, will someone pick her up? Now, here's another possibility that they did what I'm talking about and said, you know what, Chennedy is a baller, but here on this team, she's getting limited minutes. She's coming off the bench. She obviously doesn't want to come off the bench. Maybe we let her go and let another team, who knows who that team might be, another team bring her on.
Will Los Angeles take a gamble? They are finding wins hard to come by and need offensive help. Would Chicago consider a reunion following the turbulent events of 2024? Is any organization prepared to jeopardize its internal chemistry for someone with a history of fractured relationships? A struggling franchise might ultimately decide the risk is worth the reward. Her pure skill level is high enough that a team in a difficult spot could take that leap. Yet, pure ability has never been the issue for Chennedy Carter. The complications lie elsewhere, and eventually, organizations stop offering opportunities to integrate and invest in a player.
My read on that, and let me be clear, I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth. I'm not on the inside. I'm on the outside looking in, and so I'm just sharing my thoughts on this. The way she talked about culture there suggests to me, concerning Damiris Dantas in particular, that the players want Dantas there. You may remember that we were told early before the season started, actually in preseason, that the core players wanted certain people, and Damiris Dantas's name was in that list. They wanted her. So if they wanted her to come back to the team, I'm of the mind that they likely want to make sure she stays. So I think that's important.
This connects directly back to Indiana's choice regarding Pissott, as the exact same logic holds true. Stephanie White pointed out that Dantas and Vance Lewin are vital pieces who elevate, support, and invest heavily in the collective environment. This specific choice of words is highly intentional. It demonstrates that the Fever value a unified locker room over the theoretical potential of an athlete who likely wouldn't see consistent playing time anyway. When a franchise centers its future around a transcendent star like Caitlin Clark, this strategy is entirely logical. Disruptions must be avoided, along with any resentment regarding playing time or lack of recognition. The goal is to fill the roster with individuals dedicated to team success, regardless of how limited their minutes might be. This is excellent management.
I also wish her well. I wish Justine Pissott absolutely well, and I would have wished her well if she stayed with the Fever. Obviously, that's not happening. I wish her well as she goes. But it's not certainly the end of the world. I mean, it's just not the end of the world. Somebody put on X and said, Michael, who's been on the show doing Fever analysis, he was just like, wait a minute. We got Caitlin Clark back, likely playing again starting on Wednesday, tomorrow, and people are crashing out about Justine Pissott. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Most of the Fever supporters understand this reality. As one sports commentator observed, it is ironic that fans are panicking over Justine Pissott right as Caitlin Clark prepares to return to action and likely re-enter the starting lineup on Wednesday. The gap in importance between those two storylines is massive. Standing at 13-15 and holding a postseason position, Indiana's true headline is the healthy return of their cornerstone player, not a developmental deal coming to a close.
Guaranteed contract situations are there, but it's the West Coast swing for Indiana. So she'll be in an Aces jersey when we play the Aces again.
Before the team returns to their home court, looking at the bigger picture helps explain the public frustration. Fans only witness the statistical summaries and highlight reels rather than the daily practices, and short clips can make almost anyone seem worthy of a larger role. In reality, coaching staffs base their evaluations on the remaining 95% of a player's conduct, the moments that never trend on social media. They evaluate how an athlete receives instruction, manages difficulties, and impacts team chemistry. If Indiana's coaches concluded that Pissott fell behind Vance Lewin or others in these intangible categories, it is based on internal knowledge the public lacks. We will have to see how it plays out, but what is the true takeaway?
Now that she has been waived, so I just typed it in Google to have the exact words, and Google says when a WNBA team waives a player, they are released from the active roster and placed on waivers for 48 hours. During this window, other teams can claim the player and their existing contract. If multiple teams place a claim, the team with the highest waiver priority is awarded the player. If the player is not claimed, they clear waivers and become an unrestricted free agent, free to sign with any team.
What lies ahead for these teams? Indiana moves onward with a group they trust completely. Pissott will receive an opportunity to show her worth in Las Vegas, provided she can carve out playing time on a highly competitive roster. Meanwhile, Chennedy Carter will either be picked up from waivers by an organization willing to gamble on her skill, or she will enter free agency in search of a new home. Ultimately, the defining narrative remains whether the Fever can mount a serious postseason run with Clark, Boston, and Mitchell leading the charge. That is where our attention belongs. These roster decisions show that front offices place a much higher premium on team chemistry than the public realizes. management will routinely opt for a lesser-known player who fits the system over a star who disrupts it. When a front office makes an otherwise puzzling move, it typically stems from internal data hidden from the public eye. The Fever evaluated Pissott daily in their gym, while the Aces observed Carter closely for weeks, leading both franchises to the exact same conclusion. Raw skill cannot outweigh a poor cultural fit. While these choices are rarely crowd pleasers, they are essential for constructing a championship roster capable of executing under pressure. Did Indiana make the correct decision by allowing Pissott to leave, or should they have retained her and risked their locker room dynamic? Share your thoughts below. For more in-depth analysis on the WNBA transactions that truly alter the league, make sure to subscribe. Until next time.